Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. All right, so this evening I'd like to keep going on our theme of looking at intention, looking at the mind, yeah, but a slightly different angle, partially motivated by a question that somebody pitched me like right before the Uposatha. So it's technically your fault, Laura. But if this were just a random public group, then I would just stick with something nice and safe. And I had a nice little list of 5 all queued up, and we're just gonna there are these 5 such and such, but we all know each other. We all know where each other's at, and we're willing to explore and consider some stuff. And this is important. If we had done that list, I would have said that, the sincerity and honesty are an important factor of striving, of practicing. So we're realistic about where we're at, what we're willing to be on board with, and what we're kind of still on the fence about. When it comes to intention, I think most of us understand that, yes, we intend stuff. Yeah, we have motivation. That's not really in question. What is a bit murkier is, where does that come from and how far does it extend? Like, really, what is its impact on what's going on in the world? And this is one place where, as I've pointed out in previous reflections, and it's held up in the suttas, the Buddha tends to flip things, upside down based on how the world usually looks at things. Yeah, it's usually like, okay, this is real. What's going on in here? Not so much. You don't have to worry about it so much. But the Buddha says, no, no, no. The very first line of the Dhammapada is the Buddha's stance on this matter. It's mano pubbangama dhamma. Mind precedes phenomena. So everything we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we touch, and even the very thoughts, that nattering little voice that seems to come out of nowhere and dominates the direction of our thoughts, all of those arise in the mind. The mind has no form, it has no substance, it has no location, and yet it exists because stuff keeps happening. And if we watch long enough, we can even start to predict, oh, wait, that happened. I'm about to get angry. Yep, here we go. I'm getting angry. How did we know? If it's all just arising in nothing, then there shouldn't be any continuity to it. But it turns out, even though the mind has no form, it has no location, it does have patterns, it does have proclivities. And so our intentions are part of these proclivities, these unseen mental tendencies to move in particular directions, and part the effect of that. Some of our intentions are very straightforward. Like, I'm thirsty. I want something to drink. I'm going to get something to drink. I fill up my cup with water, and I drink it. There goes the intention. It's done. But some intentions, and this is where we start to get into the cosmology, are possibly very, very profound and have very far-reaching consequences and are totally out of our control at this point. So if you've all been here, so you know that I tend to talk a lot about character types, because in terms of like analyzing how we relate to things, it can be fun for one. You're like, you're a greed type. There you go again, being all you're always looking on the bright side of things, and you just won't let them go. It's very greedy. Yeah, and it can kind of diffuse things to see that we all have different proclivities. But if you think of it from an intention point of view, like, why? If anything is possible, and I do say, just in samsara, anything is possible, then why do you only have 3 character types? Yeah, why do you just have a greed type, a hate type, and a delusion type? And why can I sit here and be like, oh yeah, you're a hate type? And you're like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, see, why can I do that? Right? No, because I'm a delusion type, and I don't feel any fear about just saying stuff because I don't feel the immediate impact of it. I hear about it later. And 2, because we do have a tendency. Where does that come from? Well, part of it is what's this idea floating in the ether about our purpose in life, right? What is the meaning of my life? Why was I born? What am I here to do? Why do we even have that notion? Well, isn't it funny that before we took birth, there was volition, there was intention. And that's a critical component of the Buddha talking about rebirth, but also talking about nibbana, talking about where rebirth stops, is that intention is what causes rebirth. There's a mental process that says, wait, I'm not done. I want another go. I want to hit the reset button. I want to try again. I can do better. Or if it's coming from an aversive mind, it's like, okay, anything but that. I don't care where I land as long as I'm not back here. Yeah. Or it can just be plain delusion. It's like, well, I have to be somewhere, right? Well, sorry. You answer with delusion, you get delusion. You're gonna land somewhere because that's the intention you just formed, right? So why do we have character types? Well, yeah, we set an intention, and that intention was a part of the causal process for birth. And so we're talking about the mind, and we're saying that the mind happens before your life. Yeah, your life is arising in the mind. Your life from birth to death is bounded, and the mind is beyond it. Yeah, so there are causal processes that began this whole thing you call your life. And when it ends, it's not as simple as, okay, here I go. I'm going to wink out of existence. That's it. With a mind preceded phenomena, it's also, if there's any intention left, it's going to keep going. Yeah, it's going to set the stuff up for another go. Now, that won't be you, but it won't not be you either. Yeah, to the degree that you are you now, that same degree of you being you next time, right? And if you've practiced long enough to find that a bit scary, then I think you're starting to get it. If you can just wake up and you have to run with whatever intention you set at the beginning of this, then you can't get out of it. You're here until this meat sack dies. That's threatening, yeah? That could be 30, 50, 70, 120 years of existence on this planet. Do you really want to do that again? If you've been paying attention for even a couple of the last few years, probably no. You're probably willing to check out, yeah? But that's the power of intention. And that's exactly why the Buddha turns it upside down and says, really look at the mind. Really look at the ideas you're setting in place, the perspectives you're setting in place, the stances you're taking, the views you're nurturing, because that will generate birth. That will generate whole existences. Now, just because that is possible, and again, in samsara, it's all possible, it can all happen. Just because it is possible, we have to begin to work in the direction of accepting it is happening. And so what do I mean by that? Well, part of the question that got us going in this direction, thanks again, Laura, deals with the other world. Now, there's this tendency in pop dharma, in modern dharma, to take a psychological view of a lot of the stuff that's happening in the canon, in the Pāli canon, in the suttas. Now there are things going on about the realms of existence. There's animals and there's ghosts and there's hell beings and there's devas and there's gods and there's non-returner realms where you have no form. You just float around making stuff and then unmaking stuff, and it doesn't affect you at all. And there's that. But then there's also the beings that live in those realms. And there's a lot of resistance to accepting that, wait, are you telling me, that you think there's like ghosts wandering around here? And it's very interesting that even though I'm not aware of any of us having the ability to just perceive these people when we're walking down the road, it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, no, there's a ghost in there and there and there and there and there. Even though none of us, as far as I know, have that proclivity, we are all in various degrees of opening up to that as a possibility. Yeah. And I could look at every single one of you and say how far you have come. And I wanted to commend you and suggest that you also take stock of that. Because as practitioners, we start out and it's very reasonably like, nah, I'm not going to sign up for that. Like you do whatever you want with like the devas and the whatnot. This is fun. I get it. You need something to keep the kids occupied, but I'm serious. I'm here because I got some stuff going on in my mind and I want to work through it. And once I get through it, I feel like I'll be done with you. Yeah. So just let's focus on that because that's what's important. Yeah. But then as we go, we begin to open up more and more, and we begin to let go of, and we realize, wow, a lot of that was tension. A lot of that was ardent disbelief that when I investigated it, I really didn't have any reason to disbelieve. Yeah. I started out so sure that wasn't real. And the more I looked at it, my uncertainty was what wasn't real. My doubt was what wasn't real. It wasn't based on anything. I just didn't want to accept that this could be real because it would just make my life more complicated. I wanted to believe that my life was just this comfortable little box I've been living in. And you're suggesting I open the box and start unpacking stuff, and it is crazy out here. It's like a madhouse. No, I like no, but eventually, yeah, the walls of the box come down and we realize, no, it really is a madhouse. It really is a lot more possible in samsara than I thought going in. And so we might start by thinking, look, I just want to fix my stuff and I don't want to take on any of this. As we go, we start to realize that opening up and opening our mind and kind of relaxing around some of this stuff is part of that process. That there is blind faith and there is skeptical doubt. And somewhere in between, there is a healthy balance of belief and disbelief, where we don't disbelieve something that we can't disprove, and we don't believe something that we can't prove, but we're still pretty open-minded because that's actually the easiest way to not form views and opinions about things. And so there is this idea that's floating around that when the Buddha talked about Mara, or he talked about devas, or he talked about hell beings, it was a metaphor. And I really can't encourage that at all. One, because I'm a monk. I mean, this is my job. This is what I do. Like, I'm not going to throw out half of the Pāli canon, but also because I'm very serious about the value of having an open mind, but also the value of beginning to take realistic stock of where we are in samsara, that it is a mess and that it is a big cosmological sized mess. Yeah. That over time, I have come to believe that mano pumbangama dhamma, that mind precedes phenomena. And that means that the stuff that's going on in here can generate reality. And because that is possible, there's probably a lot of crazy realities all around us generated by the mind. Yeah. that it's not that I know, but it's that it's what we in the suttas they call a logical inference. If this is possible, and I've seen my mind to do these things, then it's probably happening somewhere. So do I know that there are ghosts? No. Do I know that there are people who are addicted to things? Yes. If it were possible that being addicted to something could cause you to linger in a ghostly, tortured state after you die, if that were possible, would people be in that state? Yeah. Would a lot of people be in that state? Yeah. Is it possible that you could think like an animal? Yeah, no, I see it all the time. It's horrifying. There's a lot of people who's like it's dinner time in certain households, and you put out the tray of food and everybody just like starts to grab the drumsticks, and whoever gets theirs, gets to eat, and whoever doesn't move fast enough doesn't get to eat. Yeah. Is it possible that if you could act like an animal while in a human body, that at the time of death, that maybe that intention, that karma, that becoming that you've been taking on could result in that kind of existence? Yeah, it's possible. If it is possible, could it be that some people pass away from this state and end up in that one? Well, then yeah, that's a reasonable inference. And we start out and we're just like, look, I'm just trying to not be angry all the time. And then somewhere along the way, this compassion starts to seep in, and we realize that coming to learn about and accept these levels of existence is really coming to learn about and accept the levels of existence in our very life. That until we're willing to accept the possibility of a Mara as a being who's wandering around malevolently causing problems for people, until we're willing to accept that, we're really not willing to accept the Maras in our world now. And these people are dictators. These people are CEOs. These people are mobsters, thugs on the street. Yeah, these people are warlords roaming about, torturing, killing, stealing, adulterating, doing all of these terrible things. If we're not, no, look, it's like the Mara is a psychological concept. Yeah, it's a metaphor for our attachment to sensuality. Well, if we're not willing to accept that there could be a being out there that actually has a lot of power through fear and control and addiction, then we're probably not willing to accept that there are beings in our world that are also doing that. But if we are willing to accept one, we're probably moving in the direction of being able to accept the other. Yeah. So there's this principle, and I use a quote because I can't think of a better quote, and it comes from Harry Potter, to believe it or not. And there's this one character who says they're having this dream sequence with their teacher, who's already dead, and they ask the question is like, wow, I don't know, is this just happening in my mind? And the character, the dead character, says, of course it's just happening in your mind. But why should that mean it's not real? And I think that as we go along, this is the perspective that we start to take when we turn our value judgment upside down, and we realize that the mind precedes all of the physical stuff. Yeah, is that previously we were what we decided was real was the sensual stuff, what we could agree on. Yeah, that's what's real. But it's kind of funny when you think about it. The things that we sense through our eyes and our ears and our nose and our tongue and our body, that's the lowest common denominator. That's the stuff we have no control over. By the time we experience it, we're just experiencing it. We have no control over it whatsoever. We are as passive as we can get. Our only participation is being conscious. if we weren't conscious, we wouldn't experience the sense bases. But because we're willing to be conscious, we experience the sense bases. That's the degree of participation we have in what we say is real, right? That we are awake for it. So why should we take that as our standard for reality? Again, it's the lowest common denominator. Part of the amazing thing that opens up with samadhi and the jhanas is the Buddha says, you cannot quantify what's possible in the jhanas. Basically, at the entry of the first jhana, the first level of deep samadhi, you break this continuity of the cycle of sense contact. Yeah. You sort of break the continuity of you being this in this container of this one life. And you've set the mind free so that it can actually create and destroy and live out its experience in the subtle realm, in the mental realm. Yeah. And that's just as real, or I would say more real than the sense stuff that you previously were only able to just experience as a mostly passive observer. Yeah. And when we do start to break this down, we start to see that now our intentions really matter. Yeah, now our thoughts really matter. Now our views really matter. Now our opinions really matter, because then they're capable of generating the world in which we live, which most of us, that's what we're really worried about. What world am I living in? Is it a depressed world? Is it an angry world? Is it a victimized world? Is it an overly sensitive world? Is it a happy world? Is it the fuzzy, up in the clouds kind of world? Is it a content world? Yeah. We are deciding that. We are creating that with our thoughts and intentions and the way that we nurture these. Yeah. And so, all of this, kind of came about from the question of how do we take this stuff we see in the suttas, these maras and devas and brahmas and ghosts and hell beings and, talking animals in some of the suttas, like, what do we do with this? Well, we've started out and we're like, I don't want to take this on. But as we go, we start to open up to it. And if at any point we find that it just seems like too much, and it's like, I'd rather just think of this as a metaphor, that's fine. But I think it's good to encourage ourselves in the way of, but I'm not always going to feel that way. Yeah. The direction we want to move in is just becoming more open-minded, because it's possible based on our assessment of what the mind could create. Yeah. And just because it might not be, what the reality in terms of what we're living in our day-to-day life, if we zoom out and look at our mental fabric, a lot of this stuff is still going on. Yeah, there is still addiction. There are still malevolent forces in the world. What you do see when you encounter these things in the suttas, and I think part of what makes it confusing for Westerners is that a lot of the portrayals of like Mara, the tempter, the devil in Buddhism, or of ghosts or of hell beings, a lot of them are sort of comical. They seem kind of harmless, don't they? Like in a lot of the suttas where Mara shows up, Mara kind of like sneaks in and gets caught and then slinks away with his tail between his legs. And you're like, why am I supposed to say this? This is Satan, and uh, he was caught, and he's bashful, and he's like scampering away. I don't get it. But this is to be taken in context for practitioners, spiritual practitioners who have developed the paramis, who have developed the faculties, who have stabilized their mind in meditation. The maras, the really awful beings in our world, cannot win. And this is probably the only place where these beings, these malevolent forces cannot win, is in the mind of a practitioner. They cannot get purchase. They cannot do damage. Yeah. If your mind is stable and you realize that the mind precedes all of the phenomena that you're experiencing in life, then you cannot, you know that you can't be harmed. Your body can be harmed. Your body can be maimed. It can be, what is it, Laura? Like sawn up. All of your limbs can be sawn off with a dull saw or something like that. It's a very fun image, yeah? And what's fun in the mind of a Buddhist practitioner, because we're like, that's right. And it's actually kind of inspiring. It's like, that's right. You could be sawing off my limbs and I could still have loving kindness towards you and be like, you're so caught in the net of delusion. I was like you once. Right before the lights go out, yeah? But it's good to remind ourselves that these are only comical because we have a way out. We have a defense against them. Yeah. In the suttas, Mara is not portrayed as a powerful, unbeatable malevolent force. The monastics are continually reminded, like, you've got his number. You can beat him. Yeah. Just keep doing what you're doing, and you will defeat Mara. You will go to a place where he can't even find you, yeah, let alone catch you and snare you. But that's the sort of encouragement you need when you're going to be skipping dinner and going out and sitting in the forest all night, where every little crack of a snap of a twig in the forest around you could be a bear. You need to be reminded that the scariest things in life cannot hurt you, cannot really hurt you where it counts. But for most people, Mara is a pretty scary malevolent force, yeah. And this is worth remembering. I think worth reflecting on. Yeah, as much fun as we make of the helpings and the suttas, it's sort of like it's almost comical. It's like this one ghost has his head on backwards. Yeah, he's so hungry, and he's in a field of sugarcane, but he can reach out and pick up the sugarcane, but his head's on backwards, so he can't feed himself. Yeah, and I think in one sutta, Moggallana comes along and he finds another ghost that's like that, and he gets them to like help each other out. Like this one feeds the other one, and that one feeds. And it's like that's comical, but you got to remember that for somebody who's addicted to heroin, this is not a comical thing, yeah? When you desire something so intensely that you're burning with thirst day and night, and it feels like your throat is pinched down to the size of a pin, yeah, and such that food can't get in, and you can't get the thing that you crave no matter how much you want it. It's like that's not comical anymore, yeah. We set up Mara as this comical tempter who kind of sneaks in and tries to be like, you want a second piece of cake? You want another helping? And we're like, oh, Mara's trying to tempt me into going back for seconds, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna keep my 8 precepts. Yeah. Um, but if you don't have a way out, it's terrifying. Yeah, to have a little devil on your shoulder saying, yeah, you can sleep with them. This is not going to do any harm. Yeah, you won't get into any trouble. Nobody will know. Just adulterate a little here, a little there. You only live once. It's actually a really terrifying, horrible thing to have, right? For a practitioner who's able to wedge their determination in between thought and action, this is you have a stopgap. You can be like, I'm not going to do that. And they'd be like, do it. I'm like, no, you're just a voice. You're just in my head. But for somebody who doesn't see that dichotomy, who acts out the things that are in their head, to have these thoughts is a disaster. And then Mara, the tempter, the one who snares beings in the net of sensuality, is the worst possible fate. Yeah. It's such that you don't even want to talk about it. Yeah. You just want to make the sign of the cross and throw salt over your shoulder and like really not dwell on these things. So as practitioners, we're kind of in a funny space about this. And of course, I can't say like, no, you should believe in it, because you shouldn't believe anything I say. You don't believe anything that you read. Yeah. But I can say an important component of right view is being open to the reality of the other world, of other forms of existence. The Buddha goes a step further, to believe in spontaneously arisen beings. Yeah. The idea that because the mind precedes phenomena, the mind can make phenomena appear. Like there could be beings in this world who just poof into existence. Yeah. And maybe even when they've done what they want to do, they poof back out, because they're not limited like we are to a single form, to a single body, to a single life stream. Yeah. They just look at us as a sort of soap opera. They come in, they say their lines, they see what happens, and then they leave. And if you've read like anything about like the Greek pantheon, right? All the different gods and goddesses, that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah. They come in, they fornicate, and then they leave. And it's up to us to deal with all the consequences and the demigods and the and the messes. Yeah. And that's kind of where we are. Now, our culture doesn't reinforce this in any way. And we come with a lot of baggage that says like, this is not for you. This is childish. This is too simplistic. Yeah. But I would say that what I have seen over time is that's something we can kind of just drop. We can kind of just let go of. And it starts with like, I don't know. And we've all worked on each other and gotten ourselves to that point. Yeah, we're like, we started out by, no, I know this is the way we are. And then everybody in the room goes, like, really? And we're like, oh, we're like, okay. And it's like, you're saying I'm creating suffering, aren't you? We're like, yeah. And we get over it. But along the way, I'd also like to say part of right view is that we start to see that this stuff is possible and we move on this track. And I've also seen a lot of you like moving on this track where you might not kind of get the whole like Mara scampering in the bushes, but you've gone from like, oh, I don't believe in it. It's all phooey to, well, I don't know, to, that's a really beautiful apple tree over there. If I'm reborn as an Earth Deva, I think I want that to be my house. Yeah, if you go and you like clean it up a little bit, and that's like that. To give you credit, these are profound shifts. Yeah, and it's not for nothing that everybody who practices the Eightfold Path goes through that same shift from just being like, no, it's all psychological, it's all simple, it's all straightforward. Like you can package it all in the container of this one life. And that's Buddhism is really just a kind of psychology to, I think samsara is a mess and I don't want to be reborn. It is a profound shift and it is a journey, and a journey that you don't have to be at the end of it yet. You know? I say the encouragement in terms of practice and I can't do anything because the Pāli canon is all about this, right? The cosmology, the rebirth, the devas. Usually, like, you really can't find anything that says, "Oh no, forget about them. This is all just psychological." You can find anything that supports that viewpoint. It all says, like, "Look, samsara is big. It's messy. There's a lot of stuff going on. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out." And that's the encouragement. Yeah, see it for what it is. Open up to it. Expand. And you again, we end up at the wise man's gamble, right? If you develop this and it turns out it's all false, then you had a pleasant abiding in this life and it didn't do you any harm. You You only live once, you winked out of existence. If you develop this and it turns out to have all been true, then lucky you, right? You win twice. It was comfortable and pleasant in this existence, and in the next existence, you're prepared. Yeah. But if you don't prepare, if it turns out none of this is true, none of this is reality, it turns out really action was what is important and the mind was not important, and this is what's real, and what's happening in your head is not real, then at the end, when you wink out of existence, no harm done. It was a fun ride, and then it ended. But if you didn't prepare, you didn't open up your mind, you didn't relax around these things, and it turns out any of it was true, you've lost double, because you've spent a life kind of shutting down to, I mean, all of human history kind of encourages seeing this as a cosmology, right? Yeah, you won't find a religion that doesn't have a Mara, that doesn't have a tempter wandering around like making life hell for people. They're all out there. Yeah. Uh, you've shut down to most of what was happening in your own life. But then at the time of death, if it turns out any of it is true, then you're going on a journey. You didn't pack any bags. You didn't get ready for any of it. You didn't study for the test. Where you land, it doesn't matter. You're unprepared anywhere you land. Right? And that's, yeah, you lose both ways. So the wise gamble is to just see, it's like, okay, well, let's go on this journey and see where it leads, and maybe at the end of it I'll be believing in devas and ghosts, and I'll, when Mara like shows up on my shoulder, it'll be like, get off, and people will be like, what do you, but it'll be fine. They don't have to get it. The important thing is their peace, is their stability, is their sense of the untouchability that the Buddha was pointing to, that nibbana, that freedom. And this is where it leads. This is how we get there. Okay, so that's me addressing Mara. That's the only other thing I can add on this topic is Ajahn Punadhammo created a fantastic book on Buddhist cosmology. And so if you're ever presented with stuff on the devas, on Mara, on the ghosts or whatever, and you're like, I just can't connect with this, go to the Arrow River Hermitage website or look up Ajahn Punadhammo, Buddhist Cosmology, and look at his book. And he breaks down every single realm of existence, every single noted form of existence in those realms, and he just gives all of the suttas, all of the different iterations of where this shows up and how it's presented. Yeah. And this is not meant to be exhaustive. That's just what was talked about in the Pāli canon. But sometimes that's enough for us to kind of relax, is to realize it's not a one-off. You know, the Buddha didn't talk about Gandhabas, these floating deva messengers. It was with their harps and they're on the cloud. And like, where have I heard that before? He didn't talk about them just in one place and that's it. You know, is actually, once we see all the different references, it's like, well, no, he seemed kind of serious about it for some reason. I don't know, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to get out of that, but he kept going back to it. That maybe that just helps us to kind of unravel a bit of our confusion. Is just be like, okay, apparently that's possible too. Try not to be one of those next time. And yeah, it can be, so that's a great read. And if it's the middle of the night and you wake up and your partner's asleep and you need something to read, just grab your phone and start scrolling, and can't do any harm. Yeah. All right.